Good evening, yeah, Rowan. Welcome to live number 245. And welcome. It feels like an age since I've last spoken to you. But we'll allow everybody to get their feet under the table. And I'll get myself in some semblance of order. Apologies to, I think it was Super Ted. No, Andy Turner. Apologies, Andy. Something's going on with me, Alexa. I think she's gone on strike, to be fair. So I will, let me just do this. That's that. Because one of the schoolboy errors that I've made previously has been to not have it charged up as I'm doing the live. It's been quite close to running out of juice. So sorted that firstly. And Andy says, hello, yeah, Rogan from a 21 degrees Zante. Home soon, just for shits and giggles. Ask Alexa, how do you say a seal pushed me yesterday? En français. Thank me later. So very quickly, I tried to sort Alexa out, and she's not having it. Or me messing about with her diodes. I was very gentle, but and in other news, so that's the second course of antibiotics that have not worked. So it looks like I'm going for a chest X-ray. Could be dead soon. Obviously, I'm joking. So welcome to everyone, and yes, have a few things to talk about. Not sure we'll get through everything tonight because there is a lot to talk about, including a little Dougie this evening. Now, you have my word that I'm not doing anything unless it's new. So there's new Dougie tonight around his Ustream interview, which I've watched. So I'll give you my take on the Ustream interview. I thought, to be fair, Jim Davidson, he was quite good as an interviewer. Not that I'm being patronising, of course, but we will get there. I've made some notes, so we'll talk about it. We have a lot of quick stuff to talk about. I'm going to make a couple of predictions tonight, but we'll get to those a little later. Let's get into some parish notes. Les Griffiths, first in the body of the Kirk tonight. Les, welcome, welcome, welcome. Les is on the queue and on boards, which is kind of some psychic AI. Some people reckon it's Melania. Some people reckon it's the Donald himself. Dear Lord, honestly, I sit in peace and comfort and quiet, and I don't cough at all. The minute the adrenaline kicks in for this, poof, there you go. I'm coughing my ring piece up. Les says, I have a question. The 10 days of darkness, when? Question mark. Now, Q answered, shut down. So the American government's been kind of shut down because we've not got any cash. I mean, I'm sure the Donald could have given them some Bitcoin, but they've got no cash. So study the Q board, get your popcorn, buckle up, buttercup. Cheers, Les. Good to have you in the body of the Kirk. Andy, enjoy balmy, that's with an L, not an R, Zante. I'm sure it's very nice. And I will try and get me... Alexa! You know... They nag you all day, and then when you have something decent to say, they give you the quiet treatment. Alexa. Right. I'll sort her out tomorrow. So we'll do, Andy. Remember, the lives this week are Sunday, that's tonight, Monday, that's tomorrow night, and then Wednesday. But I do know some people have said, oh, yeah, I take me dog for a walk whilst listening to Adrian. If hopefully Dominic Beresford's in the house this evening. If not, Dominic, enjoy the dog walking. Do appreciate it. Super Ted says, evening, Adrian. Sorry, Dominic, I appreciate your very kind words. Super Ted says, way aye, Adrian, man. That's to be smoggy, wouldn't it? Super Ted, what's going on? Middlesbrough second now after being top. Oh, man, Coventry. Having a rare old season. And I know that Sandra Whittam's not in the body of the Kirk this evening, but I have been in touch just to say, look, you know, we're giving you some support. Get yourself back in the body of the Kirk soon, and hopefully the Blades will start winning. So welcome, Super Ted. Evening, Adrian. Hope you enjoyed your well-deserved rest. I'm having withdrawal symptoms. Looking forward to tonight's show. Thank you, Super Ted. Yes, I did. I went to see my mate Mike and his wife Joyce, who are regular viewers to the lives, and it was just being unplugged from this and social media and not bothering about what's been going on. But there's been an awful lot going on whilst I've been kind of unplugged for the last 5 or 6 days. But just being with Mike and Joyce is always a joy, always. And we just talk about stuff that interests us. So it's a bit like me being you, asking questions about me and my take on stuff. I go to my mate Mike, I ask Mike questions, and we have a rare old chat, and it was just fabulous. So thank you for asking, Super Ted. And it was in Corby Newham, which is kind of the posh part of Middlesbrough. Not Middlesbrough, it's Middlesbrough. Isn't that right, Super Ted? Les Griffiths, there was a place of worship in Peacehaven set ablaze last night. They want civil unrest on the streets. The government, not me and you, not people, the decent law-abiding citizens of this country. And Les also says, Ginger Growler's boyfriend. I saw Jim Davidson using the term Ginger Growler today. Nice one, Jim, mate. Came up with that 18 months ago before they were elected. Oh, do you know, if it's good, it's I'll take it as a compliment. Les says, Ginger Growler's boyfriend ferried around in an 80 grand BMW, complete with armed bodyguards, courtesy of the taxpayer. Yeah, I know, Les, I know. Seemingly the Growler is on her way back. Back where? Up Manchester. Andy Burnham's been had his arse smacked and put in his place. I wonder what, I wonder why. I wonder why. I know why, but I can't say here. Boston Brakes technique. I'll have my brake pipes cut. Stuart says, evening, Adrian. Welcome back. Hope you've had a nice week off. It's great to have you back. Oh, you're very kind, Stuart. Yes, it was lovely. Hang on. Stuart says, oh, right, I was told by a friend to ask mine that, and I was speechless and in stitches. Right, Stuart, you're wrong. I'm definitely at it tomorrow with Alexa. Oh, I bet she screams if she wants to go faster. Neil Cunningham, good evening, everybody in the Kirk. Hope you had a good weekend. What do you call a home? Very good, Neil. I have to be very careful. It is YouTube after all. Andrew James says, don't forget to go build a bear tomorrow and name your new bear Charlie Kirk. What? Is that what's happening tomorrow? Build a bear? Or build a berg? That'll be icebergs if you're on the Titanic. Thank you, Andrew. Welcome to the body of the Kirk, as always. Paulie Galtieri, good evening, Adrian. You're utter wrong. Same back at you, Paulie. Amalia Grassi, I thought I'd be the first, but early on, but nope. Checking in with an early hello, boiled eggs and grissini tonight. Oh, little grissini goes a long way, Amalia. And early Gevcon, blimey, Amalia, have you been eating the whiskey? Feckin' phone, says Amalia. Agreed, Amalia, but welcome to the body of the Kirk. Where are we? Everybody's saying hello. Evening, Les says, evening, John Boy. Evening, Jim Bob. Evening, Grandpa. Evening, Ma. Evening, Mary Ellen. We are becoming the Waltons. There's a gag there somewhere, Les. I might have to think about that for tomorrow. Andrew says, my wife is away for 2 weeks to see her sister. Any spare birds and booze? You can have the Alta wine and some Battenberg. Now, I am a little worried because since the last live, last Sunday, those pesky Austrian nuns are incognito. I don't mean in a band playing bass. I'm talking about, I haven't seen the feckers. Nowhere to be seen. And Sister Mary's Big Dog Dick, I've not seen that one either. So I'm going to have to do some investigating tomorrow. I haven't seen the bishop. Not that I'm going to bash him tonight. maybe it's my aftershave, maybe, or it's BO, or the baggering off, the KBO, the keep buggering on, according to Churchill. But the body of the Kirk seems to be quite late for their footfall this evening. So all round to Andrews, we're gonna do, was it PlayStation and Alta Wine? Les Griffith says to Andrew James, my wife's away for 2 weeks to see her sister. Any spare birds and booze? And Les says, ginger growlers available, Andrew. Oh, I say, what? Be like chucking a chipolata up the Mersey Tunnel. I don't know what you mean by that, Adrian. Do you know, I touch my... everybody, bloody hell. Bloody thing. There's loads of people in body of Kirk. Right. Let me just get me... I can't really repeat what Les and Andrew are conversing about, but well, it must be some caring, understanding 90s type in number 10, because Andrew says, I don't want to get thrush, mate. I don't know what they're talking about. Andy Turner says, good evening, you lot. It's 21 degrees C and 9:30 here in Zandi. 23 tomorrow with thundery showers. Been watching Zia Yusuf from Reform. Speaks very well. He will not answer all questions thrown at him. Oh, I bet he won't. And Tom Harneys says, evening all. As a Roman philosopher once said, well, I never expected that. And up the Arsenal. You know, that's... well, you know, the Toxic Starmer, it's his favourite, that, up the Arsenal. Football team, before you kick off. It's a freebie. What's not to like? I hope he uses lube. I see you. Good evening, everyone. Totley 69, Adrian, and all you utter roggans. Papers, please. No Battenberg without ID. Fabulous idea. I don't think there'll be that much left by the time I finish at 9. Albert Metcalf, digital ID, never! You will never take my freedom! Yeah, we need to paint all of our faces blue. Albert Metcalf, blimey, you're getting a bit lively tonight, Albert. Albert, Tatlock, from my cold, dead arse. Is that up the Arsenal, Albert? Got my ears on. What is the joke about Battenberg? Anybody in the body of the Kirk want to tell them? I might do a separate video about it and stick it up on the channel, because we are going to newbies. By the way, got my ears on. Welcome to the body of the Kirk. Make yourself comfortable. We do have piles cushions just over there. Sister Mary's put them out, or was it the choir boys? Not sure. The Vergers are also being very discreet and not here tonight. The lazy feckers, slackers, to be fair. So, got my ears on. Welcome to the body of the Kirk. If you're a first timer, or certainly first time poster, same for everyone. And what is it I see you say, Adrian? You're talking really quickly. I tend to pop the newbies cherries just to go, hello, welcome to the body of the Kirk. I am legitimately the Reverend Adrian Allen. What, you think dressed like this? No. I am a man of touching cloth. So, just letting you know. But what was the joke about Battenberg? I promise you, just for got my ears on, I'll do a video of the next few days. Evening, Marmite. Really? Got my ears on. I was being nice there. You don't want me when I'm not. Evening all, the old Bovril. Johnny Ray in the body of the Kirk, as is Beata. Good evening, Adrian, and all. Has anyone watched the interview on Ustream? Is it worth watching? I don't want to pay to watch. No, I'm going to give you the lowdown. I mean, I do wish Jim well in his endeavours. That's Jim Davidson, the owner and interviewer on Ustream. I do wish him well, and I do hope it brings subs in for him. It's a good business model, but I will... Adam Whale, very good, Adam. So we'll be talking about it. Adam says, am I in the right room for the AA meetings? Yeah. So welcome, Adam Well. Everyone, welcome to the body of the Kirk. I think we're almost at past, so cool, blimey. Apologies because there's so many people posting. Soul Rebel says, Kemi not good enough. She's out of touch and useless. Oh, we'll be talking about Kemi not good enough because, well, in my very honest opinion, she's shite. Soul Rebel, touch, not following through, Ed. Take care. Easy mistake to make. At my age, I never trust a single one of them. Soul Rebel. So I'm always touching cloth. Evening, Adrian, and all you wrong'uns. Not P.T. Ham. Welcome to the body of the Kirk. Rusty's Roamings, Tony Blair, Viceroy of Gaza. Well, slap my thigh and touch your toes, Rusty's Roamings, because Anthony Linton, Charles Linton, would. In a wood. Well, Heath. If you don't know, I'm not telling you. But if you want to know about Charles Linton, just Google Charles Linton. It's his two middle names. Who am I talking about? Just Google Charles Linton and Bow Street Magistrates. Oh, it's an education. It is an education. Well, we are next to godly. I mean, cleanliness is next to godliness, and I am next to God. I'm the reverend man. I can't tell you lies. I can't tell you untruths. I've got the old boy sitting upstairs with his, his white beard and his overalls on, playing his harp with his halo and his wings on. He'll be like, I'll smite thee, Reverend Chunky boy. And I am going to tell you where Chunky came from. Got to do that later. Oh, I've got so much to tell you. English bottle cap, Vix text, first things first, correct. And to everyone, I hope you're in the body of the Kirk. Reg D, Legalista, welcome. Soul Rebel, I like that woman. Brumai, I think, who does Jim's show? She's based. Oh, it's his missus. It's Jim's wife. And to be fair to Jim's missus, without being disrespectful at all, and I am just kind of, Jim has talents, and she was very good at interviewing. Very, very good. Mark Bryden. Oh, Adrian, behave. All right, then. Spoil me fun. Les Griffiths. Blair to start in a remake of Carry On at your convenience? No, Les. He'd be doing Carry On up the Khyber. Pass, man. Anybody got a Khyber diamond? Reverend. My balls, your chin. We'll be back to Charles Linton in a second. Where did you disappear to, Rev? Says Claire Bruce. I didn't disappear to anywhere. I just went and see, Super Ted knows. There's a lovely, lovely place in Middlesbrough called Kobe Newham. I went to stay with a couple of my friends. And I just wanted to unplug from this. I mean, it worked. So kind of the Monday into the Tuesday, stayed with my friends. Unplugged from social media, from everything, and I take my hat off to people who are doing it daily. I'm doing this 24/7. 21.5/7, because Tuesday night is my charity work with the Mankind Project. Vespers? What the bloody hell? Ooh, Matron, even Stephen. Lambrettas. There was a great band, Lambrettas. Should we do some music tonight as well? I think we might. But I'll get to... because some people are... oh, Stuart. Very good. I might have to reconnect her. But then again... yeah, she's probably... oh, that's why, man. That's why. Because we've had... you remember the EE story? And we're now connected to BT Business. That's why. Alexa, you tart. She's not connected. So I'll connect her tomorrow. Thank you, Stuart. Great minds think alike. Rich says everyone needs some downtime, eh? Yes, thank you, Rich. Good to see you in the body of the Kirk, along with Napoleon blown apart. Isn't he going to Gaza? Yeah, is he going to be King of Jerusalem? Well, he's a Catholic, because he's not allowed to be a Catholic when you're Prime Minister. A bit like... I'm sure Keir Starmer's not allowed to be a Jew in fact, hang on. Benjamin Disraeli was Jewish. So yes, you are. So the Jews are allowed to be Prime Minister. The Catholics are not. It's in law since Henry VIII. Those pesky feckers from Rome. No. So Alan said he did an iPhone reset, turned off, then back on again. Well, that must be me. Anthony McBain. Anthony, welcome back. Blimey, it's been a while since you've been here. How's your cold? I haven't got one. I've got a cough. So, evening, Adrian. How are you? I'm very good. Thank you, Rich. Les is upset. He don't like the music. He likes the real hard stuff, the hardcore, the QAnon. He wants to know where all the shite's buried. Well, we can do that, Les. We can definitely do that. Right, I'm going to leave you there. So thank you to everyone that's commented so far. Reg D, AA, can we discuss Starmer removing 75% of Farage's security protection? Oh, yes. I'm not sure that's still in place after what's happened in Manchester, in Heaton. It's pronounced differently in the northeast because there is a place in the northeast called Heaton. So it's Heaton. It's well, when you get one of those ice lollies shoved up your derriere like certain prime ministers. Couldn't see me lips move. The old Bovril. £2 in the swear box. Sister Mary spent it all. Blimey, I think I might get oversubscribed this evening. The old Bovril. I've not heard that little fecker for easily nearly a week. And I start me live straight after 7:30 and they put it out. Well, I might have to put it out soon because it might be on fire. Not that I would ever harm an animal in the making of this live or any other live. So, yes, I just off the top of my head, I saw that they've... look, we know this, and we know this for... And it's a technical term that we use on Theatre of the Mind lives. And it's not a show, remember? It's a mission. We don't stop. We keep pounding on. I will just say this. Starmer is shitting himself. That's not even a technical term. I mean, he's going to end up like Joe Biden. He's going to be shitting himself while he's thinking, oh, do I have a personality? No. Oh, do I look like someone that looks like a robot? Yes. And will I have to wheel out my Jewish wife to make me look a little bit more sensitive to the needs of the Jews in Manchester? Yeah, we saw through that. Yeah, fecker. So, why didn't he take his Jewish kids? Oh, don't know. Doesn't want them in the public, does he? Because he knows he's fucking toxic. So, thank you, Theo Bovril. That's a quid gone. So, 75% of Farage's security detail. We know why. Because the woman that threw the, was it McDonald's orange thingy milkshake doodah, or was it a pint full of jizz or something in Farage's face and then she got let off? Well, exactly. Because they don't care whether human beings, and I use the they loosely, they don't care whether you or I live or die. They don't care about any human being. They don't. They just want the power. What they don't understand is this. We've had enough. They can, look, there's a poll that I'll talk about in just a little while, where Farage couldn't be any further down if he had a couple of Ukrainian rent boys sucking his cock. I'm telling you, he's done, he's finished, he's over, eviscerated, gone. Labour, finished, eviscerated, gone. The Tory party, done, finished, eviscerated, gone. All of them. Because the public have had enough. The polls are saying to them, the public have had enough. And they're like, oh, don't worry, we'll bribe them. What, like you bribed us before the last general election where you said we were going to save £300 on our energy bills? And we were going to turn this country around. And we were going to, well, we're going to make sure that all of the nice MPs, the moronic people in the Ozempic Palace, all of them, were going to have certain standards. What, like the Deputy Prime Minister who didn't pay all of her fucking taxes? Yeah, that kind of corruption. Brilliant. So the public are just sitting there going, don't worry. You're all going to get fired. There's going to be 650 Reform MPs in Parliament. We will see an evisceration of the political classes, the parasitical classes, all of these corrupt fuckers gone. They don't get it because they're in the Westminster bubble. They're all bumming each other in fucking Portcullis House. They're all at it. They're all corrupt. They're all finished. They're getting the sack. Whether it's 27 or 28 or 29, it doesn't matter because the public are just laughing at them. Laughing at them. So taking away Farage's 75%, it will not stop the human beings that have had enough in this country of toxic Starmer and his corrupt government. They're going to get, there's going to be retribution, and the only retribution we can have is at the ballot box. I keep saying, every time, yes, Beat, I agree. But she should have been jailed for that. Ben Habib for me, says Derek Tomlinson. So I think it's nasty. So they're now calling them, what they're trying to do is they're trying to use, thank you, Rich, strap in tight, everyone. The rave is on form, just as long as it's not strap on, everyone. I think that would end up for an interesting live, to be fair. But thank you, Rich, as ever, for your support. I will say this. The great British public have seen through this corruption. They've seen through the World Economic Forum. They've seen through the Chinese Communist Party. They've seen through the Bilderbergers. We've seen through Charles the Weak, which is why they're talking about William becoming king daily in the newspapers, because they're not telling us how badly Charles is doing. Now, I wish him a long life. I wish him good health, the best that he can have at whatever age he is. Is he 120 now? So he's been the longest Prince of Wales. I prefer being longest in the shower. So, Amalia, you're brilliant. The old Bovril, not the old Bovril, Napoleon Bonaparte. What are you talking about, man? You're confusing Amalia. What are we talking about now? Kebabs? What? Chihuahua? Des Ashton says, abdication incoming. Now, he'll be taken out on his shield. I mean, he can abdicate. Well, what is he going to abdicate? I mean, can you imagine? Darling, Camilla, I'm going to abdicate. You're going to do what? I'm going to abdicate, darling, because, well, you know, at some point you may be a dowager queen, or I may be a dowager king, or I might be just a dowager. Can I take the next film in Downton Abbey, please? It may pay a few shekel. King Charles is 76. Cuban Pete, not my king. Every time, Cuban Pete, every time. Well, Beata says he won't be finished for another 4 years, unfortunately, unless we can overthrow this government somehow. Right, do you want one of me? I was going to get to Dougie quite quickly, but do you want one of my predictions for 2025? Thank you, Stuart. Oh, great to have you back, Rev. Right, Stuart, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Do you want my first prediction for 2025? Because I have a couple of others. Psychic Adrian. I mean, I should get a turban. It'll cover up my bald spot. I'll get a turban. I'll get a big crystal ball, because there's nothing better than get your hands on a couple of big balls. The old Bovril says, oh my word, the swear box has gone into deficit this evening. TMG, that dog sounds like that woman's laugh on Carry On Camping, played by Betty Marsden. I tell you what I did watch. As a little aside, it's on BBC iPlayer, Fantabulosa, about Kenneth Williams. And I want to save that for tomorrow night, because it has Dougie connotations. So my prediction for 2025 is, Starmer's gone. Starmer's gone. He's going to be gone before Christmas. Or Hanukkah. See, the Jews don't celebrate Christmas. They do. But he's, should I save the Starmer stuff for just in half an hour or so, once I get the Dougie thing out of the way, because I've got a lot to say. But I will tell you this. Picture of Starmer and his front bench in a synagogue. Which synagogue were they in, perchance? It definitely wasn't Orthodox, because the men and the women are separated. The men go downstairs, women go upstairs in Orthodox, and not United? Is he? Yeah, United. I still think you're split, and then you go to Reform, which is lovely and cuddly. So the men and the women can sit together if they want. And then there's the one below that, which is kind of Judaism light. Because there's 4 different kinds of synagogues. It's not just one. There's 4 different kinds. Where they split the men and women up in the top 2 and the bottom 2. Just have a cuddle and blow on your shofar. Paul Borrow says, charged through a paper in a basket but missed. Then he rang his butler to come to his room to put it in the basket. Well, as I was saying, can you imagine Charles saying to Camilla, darling, I'm thinking about abdicating. Oh, Charles, what are you, man or wimp? What are we doing? I've spent all those years supporting you and all those years trying to do my best by you, and your pesky little boy, not both of them because one of them's not his. So your two children, I've done all, and you're allowing me to be the queen for a couple of years. How weird, man, Charles, because once she's on the gin, she drops all that posh stuff, gets a tab on, and starts talking like she's come from the northeast. Charles, you're wrong. Right, no, you're not abdicating. Are you buggery? I had to go through tampon gate for a couple of years in the big chair, and you're saying we're abdicating. You can go off over to France if you want. There's previous in the royal family for getting off over to France, and I'm not going with you. Can you imagine? Kaz says, Starmer can't celebrate Christmas. It does not have the balls. Well, Hanukkah is kind of, I don't know when Hanukkah is, it's kind of like the Jewish Christmas. And it's almost in the run-up to the Christian Christmas. So double bubble. So I think that, so my prediction is this. I may elaborate later, I may not. Starmer's gone. Now, you know me. I can normally do it 18 months ahead. I've been telling you. Remember me telling you? The regulars will validate this. I did say, Sir Keir Starmer, before they were elected, is he scaring you yet? Because I hear things. I hear certain rumours. I can't give you those rumours out because you will. There'll be headlines going, yeah, YouTuber. No, don't even say that, Adrian. That's why they call magic spelling. Alan, who? Right. 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for I don't know. Who believes, as Alan has said, believes that Ginger Sphericals is Charles's son? 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for I don't know. So, do you think that Ginger Sphericals is Charlie's boy? He's never called him son. He calls him dear boy, darling boy. I think Rusty's Roamings has hit the wrong key. Oh, Marley thinks he is. Jeez, I see you. I've only pulled 4 people. Enigma say yes. Everybody else is saying no. Rich and Alan and Super Ted and Phil Sumner, Catwoman Jones, Soul Rebel Ian McGee, Ray Norton, Toto. So, Des Ashton, I don't give a flying. I think someone had it in for Charles. Well, from what I can hear, the rumours I've heard, certainly on social media, somebody definitely had it in for William. And out again, and then in again. I hope they were using loads of lube. They've pegged it. As in, they've kind of got the right answer from everybody saying. Louise Hampson says, I don't know. It would be the same time as Christmas and Hanukkah if Pope Gregory hadn't messed with a calendar years ago. I agree with you, Lionel Layton. I agree. That Pope Gregory fella, what a tart. So, I wish the king long life, because you can get sent to the tower for saying otherwise. I wish him long life and very good health. But I don't think he's long for this world, and it's a soft transition. Well, it would be. Sorry, I'm reading some of your comments on something very funny. Simon Cartwright says, just joined you. Evening, Simon. Welcome to the body of the Kirk. Currently on the Eurostar, heading back from Paris. Your topical ranting is a welcome relief from our noisy carriage. I had that problem, Simon, but the doctor gave me a very good cream, which cleared it up. Johnny Ray says, Starmer scared me the very first time I heard him on the radio. I'm a robot. I'm a robot. I'm a robot. I'm a wef robot, mate. I do as I'm told. And as I've said to you many times before, what is it that the political elite, and we're not talking about the moronic people in the Ozempic Palace, because they're not really, they don't have power. They're just grifters, grifting the money. They've got that in the trough of money. They're trying to make as much money as they can, selling flats, buying flats with other people's money, and then not declaring the taxes. They're at it. Les Griffiths. Jesus was born on the 11th of September by our calendar. Oh, have I missed Christmas? Bagger. Bloody thing. Johnny Ray says, Starmer scared me the very first time I heard him on the radio. That was before I even knew what he looked like. His voice screamed, I am a liar, I am a liar. Yeah, it's been proven. I mean, they told us, like Ed Millipede, he said, your energy bills are going to come down by 300 quid. Only if you're an MP and only if the taxpayers are paying for your energy, because it hasn't come down for me and you. So, Talker 69, I was going to ask a little bit later when I started talking about Starmer, about Agatha Christie's Keir Starmer and the mystery of the rent boy arsonists. Yeah, we don't know whether that's gone to court, do we? They've been charged, and I'm not interfering with the process of law, obviously, because I want that to take its place. But you would imagine that, well, whatever the outcome or the output from the courts around that particular case, it would have been all over the media, wouldn't you think? I'm thinking exactly the same way as you. I am psychic. You do know that, don't you? I am psychic. That's why I can tell you that Sir Keir Starmer's gone by Christmas. Yes, Des, had to make Christmas coincide with Saturnalia. I wonder who worships Saturn in this world. Few of them. So all I will say is it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. That's all I'm going to say. That is my prediction. These lives stay up. They're historical documents. I'm telling you now, it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I'm not saying any more than that. P.T. Ham, Prince William King, he will be. He will be very soon. Well, no, as I say, the King, I wish him long life and good health. I was going to tell you loads of... Paulie, you're wrong. I was going to tell you loads of... So in the sermon tonight, we're going to talk royals. We're going to talk... I was going to talk about cats and dogs, but I'm not quite sure we'll have enough time. Swifty. Not sure. It pains me. It really pains me. She's wearing lipstick. 35-year-old, man. Does she wear dungarees and comfortable shoes and drink pints? Has she got any facial hair? Talk about Manchester. We'll talk about Kemi not good enough. Tory party conference. I mean, Kemi, how weird, man. We can see right through you. I'm going to deport 150,000 illegals a year. And we all sat back and laughed. I mean, I spilt me bloody altar wine. How very dare she? I'm going to export 150,000 illegals a year. And I'll call her out. Here, Kemi, not good enough. Hadaway and shite, man. We can see through it. Oh, the Tory party conference, when does that start? Right now. They're all wherever they're supposed to be. Have they got the rent boys flying in? Have they got table tennis bats for spanking paddles? Have they got... I'm not explaining that, by the way. Are they coming in or coming out? One of the two. We can talk about the pro-Palestinian demo yesterday. So hang on a second. How many did the march for the United Kingdom? How many arrests were there? 24. How many arrests were for the pro-Palestinian march yesterday? 430 odd. Oh, by the way, happy 78th birthday to AC/DC Brian Johnson. He's a Geordie, you know. Doesn't sound like it, but he's a Geordie, 78-year-old, and he's still rocking and rolling, baby. I mean, all of AC/DC are. Rock and roll ain't noise pollution. Hell's bells, man. He's 78-year-old. See what I did there? If you know, you know. So thank you to everyone in your comments. We were going to talk about Lewis Hamilton. My dog's died. Compose a blues song. That's what the old bluesmen used to do. Compose a song and sing it, bonny lad. Well, he's been gushing on Instagram. So we'll talk about cats and dogs later. Are you a cat person or a dog person? We'll get to that a little bit later. So we'll talk about the Royals, because Tom Bauer he's been spilling the tea. He's been bringing the biscuits as well, I think, and dunking the Jaffa cakes, because they're a cake, not a biscuit, because that's why they're called Jaffa cake. Otherwise, they'd be called Jaffa biscuits. But we've got Battenberg. Don't be dunking that in your tea. Or your altar wine. Can you imagine? Oh, Rev, here's me altar wine. I've got floaters. I've got, oh, what's that in there? I've got floaters. Do I drink this? Yeah. Yeah. I've just done the checking out. No. Adrian, keep it clean. You are a reverend. We're going to talk. So Tom Bauer's been talking to Dan Wootton and talking. So we will do that. Let me just jump in very quickly. We've got quickies. We're going to do them in batches of 3. We're going to talk about. Do you know, I didn't put it in my notes. How very dare you, Reverend Adrian Allen. How fucking dare you? Should I keep it for tomorrow? Because I haven't put it in my notes, you tart. So Stingray was first broadcast October the 4th, 1964. So that's what? Jesus, nearly 60 years. 60 years next week, next October. So I am a fan of Thunderbirds and Stingray. So we will talk about those tomorrow night. I haven't got all of my notes because I was the reason why I haven't got that with me is because before I start the lives, I'll kind of go through all my research and check them and double check them and make sure that everything is as it should be, so I can give you value on the stuff that I'm talking about, whether it's Starmer and the Fun Boy 3 and the Four Tops and the Donald. He's been quiet this weekend. Don't know what's going on. We're talking about and Hamas and Israel and Russia and Ukraine, talking about the kind of geopolitical. So I go and do my research. Tonight, I've had to watch the Ustream interview with Dougie. And if you want to know who Dougie is, we call him Dougie because he's a convicted stalker. Times 4. He's a self-admitted liar. Self-admitted liar in 2 separate defamation cases in the High Court. He admitted that he'd lied twice. 2 separate cases. And the reason why I say that is because Dougie comes from, well, I don't have to explain that to you. I just have to tell you what's going on. So if I may, these are just my observations. In my view, I've watched the whole interview, every single second of it. I must compliment Jim Davison for his interview technique because he asked some really good questions. Now, please don't think that I'm being condescending, because I'm not. It's not easy doing interviews. It's not. Some people latterly have been very good at it, coming from nowhere onto the socials, and they're very good interviewers. And Jim was asking some really great questions, and Dougie didn't answer them. He didn't. So as I go through, I'll peel the layers away. He's told lies again in this particular interview. No shit, Sherlock. Leopard never changes its spots. So he's lied again. I will be pointing those out to you. And he's vindicated all of the things in the very early videos that I told you that nobody else on social media, whether it was YouTube or otherwise, had the knowledge of. But I told you. And I was attacked by his trolls saying, No, you're lying. Oh, you're just jealous. Oh, man. And he's vindicated in this interview. He's vindicated what I told you at the beginning. So he's basically said, the Reverend Adrian Allen is telling you the truth. That's why, early doors, I told you I was going to tell you the truth. Stuart, good question. Then why did he do the interview then? Well, he was publishing his books. So the premise is this. It's a house guest. So Jim, I think, is the cook in his house. So he'll just throw something together, give you the recipe, and just sit down with somebody and natter, just chat, which is... Yeah, Sol Rebels hit the nail on the head for Stuart. Stuart says, why did he do the interview then? Well, Sol Rebels says he may have expected an easy ride, Stuart. So Les says, Dougie is so sycophantic around celebs. He reminds me of a dog dragging its butthole across the carpet. It's very entertaining, Les. And Rich says, because he just can't stay out of the limelight. There is an element of that, I'm sure. But without referencing your comments, let me just get into this and give you my observations and tell you what I saw, what I heard, and what I believe. So I think young Dougie belongs to the David Lammy school of largesse, because coming out of prison where everything is regulated and you're only allowed so much food, I would presume, unless you can buy it yourself. He was the slimmest and fittest I'd seen him in a long time. Not now, he's not. I think that's why he's wearing one of his big shirts, because, well, let's just say gently, he's very broad in the beam now. Other people might say fat. I would never, ever stoop so low. I would just say very gently that he's much, much broader in the beam. And I know when he was younger, when I was working with him and I was friends with him, even though I think he's getting me mixed up with somebody else. He said, I haven't worked with him for 25 years. That's correct. Well, if doing the inserts for Santa's Sack of Wit on his Capital AM Late Night Revolution show is anything to go by, technically we did work together for many, many years after that. But he makes this grand entrance through Jim Davidson's gates. Anybody want to tell Jim? I mean, they profess undying love to each other. Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you. I was waiting for him. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it, which is copyrighted to somebody else in America. So technically, it's trademarked and copyrighted, so he can't use it. But there is something very illuminating and enlightening coming up in the next minute or two. So normally when you go to somebody's house for a bite to eat, you take something, don't you? Whether it's flowers or chocolates or a bottle of wine. It's just something to kind of go, I acknowledge you're doing the cooking and what you're doing and you're receiving me as a guest, but I just want to... He turned up with... a copy of his first 2 books. Says a lot. So there's a bit of badinage between banter chat between Jim's wife and or Jim's partner and Dougie. And I don't know whether it was because they weren't wearing lapel mics, but the sound was being drowned out by a main road. So Jim must live on a main road somewhere. I thought he was a multimillionaire. I would suggest that the drama queenery is off the charts. He said, for drama, they wanted me dead. There's only him believes that. Everybody else is like, I wish he'd just shut the fuck up. The drama queenery of it all. And in this video, this interview, off the charts. They wanted me dead. Well, from what I understand of the judicial system, that's the last thing they would want. And you're not dead. You keep telling people that they did, but you're not. It's the usual brown stuff that he's piping out. He's talking about his incarceration. He's talking about his time inside. And he then, so the way that he does things, when Jim asks him a question, and some of the questions were brilliant, one breath questions straight to the point. He never answered them. What he did do, and this is a learned behavior, certainly from the Nazis, what you do is you just reflect the question back to the interviewer. And if the interviewer, and I'm not suggesting this is Jim Davidson by any stretch of the imagination, but I've had it done for me, and I'll just look them straight in the eye, think, you cheeky fecker. Bang, take this. Bang, take that. By the way, I'm taking you back there to the original question, and I'm going to ask you it again. And if you avoid it, I'm going to say to you, why are you avoiding the question? But I always do my interviews with dignity and respect, as you have seen with some of my recent interviews. So what Dougie did was he related a story about the Dave Lee Travis trial, Operation U Tree. And his take from somebody that had been at the Dave Lee Travis trial was in relation to himself, that's Dougie, the convicted stalker, they've not gone to this amount of effort to let you off. Can I just say something here at this junction? There was 4 guilties in this case. 4. And he wasn't found guilty by a judge. He was found guilty by a jury of his peers. Guilty times 4. It was only the sentencing that came from the judge, and I will get to that in just a little while. So how did Dougie vindicate me today? Really simply. He said he admitted to playing care homes aged 20. What he was trying to do was he was trying to show that he came from nothing and then went stratospheric. He's admitted to playing care homes aged 20. I don't know whether you saw any of my earlier videos, but I told you, showbiz, he's been in showbiz for 40 years. No, he hasn't. He's only 45 now. What was he? Up on the boards as a kid. Don't be silly, he would have gone through. Did you see his weight? Reverend, I think you're being fattest. I think you'll find he's the fattest. And he knows where I got that gag from. So he was saying that he was in showbiz for all these years. He's now cut it down in the interview with Jim Davis and saying, well, I've been at it for 30 years. He's been a journalist since he was 15. I told you this, that he was playing care homes. That was his version. And to be fair to him, he was making a few bob. I mean, he was living at home with his mum and dad in their back bedroom. So he wasn't that old. He was kind of 15, 16, 17. At 20, he said, I was playing the care homes as an example of how stratospheric his rise was. And I told you, I was working at Century 106 with him answering my phones through the glass for my lunchtime and late night phone-ins on Century 106 across Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire and Leicestershire. But he denied that when he first came out of jail. He said, no, I haven't. I haven't seen him for 50 million years. So he's corroborated what I told you in one of my videos in this Ustream interview. I mean, he's very plausible. Comes across as very plausible. But the psychologists will tell you every convincing lie contains a kernel of truth. So when I said he was playing care homes while he was working with me in the year 2000, he said, that's when he was 20, he said, no, he's lying, I've not seen him since I was 19, and then 17, and then, boy can't lie straight in bed. Everything that I'm telling you now can be corroborated because I've got the emails at home. They can be corroborated. But he's very plausible. So then he talks about John Myers. Now, John Myers is an old friend of mine. Anybody that's done any commercial radio over the last 40 years or a little bit of BBC, but John, or Chunky, as I knew him, but obviously didn't say because it's kind of derogatory. Jim Davidson asks him, so where did you get the nickname Chunky from? And I thought, hang on, he hasn't got a nickname called Chunky. He's never been known as Chunky. That's John Myers. And when Jim asked him the question, he deflected it and talked about other stuff. It's not Dougie's nickname at all. Never has been, never will be. That's utter bollocks. He said, I met up with him in Florida. Did he shite? Did he shite? Now, Myers, I would... John's not around anymore, but John Myers got his nickname Chunky back in the early 80s when he was a voiceover. We call them VOs or voiceovers in radio. And my first radio station, I was there in 84. I was just a gopher. And John used to come in to do voiceovers for the commercial production department and make a few bob. You know, you would get paid per script. He would come in and he was always like, oh, have you got any Scooby snacks? Have you got any Scooby snacks? I'm starving. And that's where he got the chunky from, because he was a big old boy. He must have been, what, 6'4"? It's all relative, I suppose, but he was a tall boy. So he said in this Jim Davidson interview, oh, I met him when I was 18, and then told a story, the well hackneyed story, that is it the documentary Room at the Top, where Myers goes into Century 106 and like fires everybody, including the woman behind the religious program. He told that story. Dougie got it off the telly. Room at the Top with John Myers. Dougie wasn't even in the room. Myers didn't tell him that. He saw it on the telly, like you would have done if you'd been around watching that particular documentary at the time. So he says, oh, I met him when I was 18. Myers wouldn't have known him when he was 18. He was just a grunt. Remember I told you the story, how my managing director at Century 106 came to me and says, should we talk about this boy, Dougie? What do you want to do with him? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm thinking about getting rid of him. And I said, no, he's a good phone up. Just keep him. So at that point, he was saying, I met John Myers when I was 18 years old. And he didn't tell Jim Davidson where he got the Chunky nickname. He never got the Chunky nickname. It was John Myers' nickname, and he's assimilated that. How ghoulish is that? It was John Myers' nickname from the early 80s. At Radio T, well, I can only speak for Radio T's when I was working with John then. I went on to work with John all over the place. And it was, to be fair to the managing director at Century 106, John Myers came in and he was going to sack me. I'd done the lunchtime phone-in for a month. And I wasn't bothered. I was just happy to do my radio in the Northeast. And Myers said to the managing director, leave him, team. He's going to be a star. And Dougie did an impersonation of Myers. I was looking at this thinking, what the fuck are you doing? And he said that Myers used to walk into the room and say, morning, Chunky. Myers never said that. Not on a month of Sundays. I mean, to be fair to Dougie, he did say he wasn't drinking. He said he'd driven down, couldn't drink, because if they pulled him over, he'd get the book thrown at him, or words to that effect. Myers never walked into any radio station room saying, morning, Chunky. He didn't. He walked into the room and said, team. He's lying again. But you wouldn't know that. Only the people that worked with John or worked for him, with him, alongside him, or knew him for years. Sadly, John passed away. But I knew John from 1984, and I can tell you categorically, Dougie's lying. He never, ever, 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 have I done enough evers for you? Worked for John Myers or with him. The decision makers would have been below John Myers, who might have said, as the managing director did when he came to me, what we're going to do with him. Oh, no, he's not bad. And then he went on to do little inserts into the breakfast show, some showbiz inserts. He was desperate to be on the radio. Myers wouldn't have known Dougie if he stood up and bit John's nose off. And then he goes on to say, oh, I'm not an original. I just pick up bits from here and there. That quote, I told you, he was nicking Scotty's stuff, Scotty McClue. He's evidently nicked Doddy and some of the other 70s comedians. And he literally lifted most of my stuff. Now, I know why he continues to use it. Because he sees it as a wind-up. He gets a kick from winding people up. But, and I'm quoting him, I am not an original. I pick bits up from here and there. I am not an original. He was blowing smoke up Jim Davidson's arse at that point. But I agree with him. He's not an original. I've told you before, he's never had a single original thought in his head. And the books that he started writing, he was having to write stuff for the 2 psychologists that he admitted. Senior psychologist, I don't know whether they were forensic. But they asked him to write about his childhood. And he's writing it thinking, ooh. But let's get to a really pivotal point. All the time that he was in jail, before, during, and after, he complained to you, the viewer, that police officers turned up at his home, or whether it's, well, he said it was his, so it was his door that they broke down. And he said to you, they weren't wearing their epaulets. They weren't wearing their collar number. Do you know why? I can tell you this now, because nobody else has. He admitted it in this Ustream interview. He admitted there was a terrorist threat to the BBC in his name. So when there an incident is connected with terrorism, the police officers don't need to wear their epaulets or their collar numbers for their own safety or other things. So in this Ustream interview, he admitted that they broke down his door and it was over a terrorist threat. Now, I can tell you now, it was a terrorist threat to the BBC, to BBC Radio Nottingham, in his name. That's why they turned up. That's why they didn't have to wear their epaulets. It wasn't because they were hiding them. It's because it is police procedure. If it's a terrorist-related incident, they don't have to wear their epaulets or collar numbers. That's why he's told you a lie. Another lie. Continually lying. A self-admitted liar. I mean, how many times do I have to tell you? The boy's just a pathological liar. The police didn't have to. And do you know what the threat was to BBC Radio Nottingham? Going to blow the BBC up and chop their heads off. Now, I don't know whether, because somebody else was charged, and whether that process of law has been completed. I would have thought that nearly 4 years later, that that process of law is completed. I'm not going to talk about that particular case. I'm just talking in general terms around Dougie and why the police didn't wear their epaulets. And that's an exclusive because nobody knows, and he didn't give you that truth in this Ustream interview. And he's also said book 2 is about the trial. And once he finishes his license, he's going to publish the book. No, he's not. He can't. He can't put out into the public domain anything to do with the trial, anything to do with the 8 victims of Dougie and or Justice Saney or anybody else involved in that court case. He can't because there are restraining orders, 10 of them, 2 which weren't involved in the case, but the 8 victims have restraining orders in place. So he says, well, I'm not a journalist, because to give Jim Davidson his credit, he said to Dougie, you're a commentator. And Dougie didn't correct him. There are emails, corroborative proof, where Dougie says, I'm not a journalist, will not be a journalist, I don't ever want to be a journalist. Because there's nobody to actually check what he's saying. But I can. Because I know him. And I know what he's been through. and he's a self-confessed liar. So the restraining orders that have been put in place, so he legitimizes what he's saying by saying that's why I could report on my own trial. The restraining orders were put in place after the trial, at the end of the trial, by Mr. Justice Saini. So Mr. Justice Saini said, yeah, okay, you can do that, seemingly you're a journalist. And Justice Saini nowhere, anywhere, ever said that he was a journalist. So don't believe what he's saying to you when he's telling you, I'm a journalist. No, you're not. Mr. Justice Saini said I was. No, he didn't. He said you're a social commentator. And that's in the paperwork from the trial. And what he's reliant on is nobody doing any of their research. Nobody doing any of the digging to quote the Mr. Justice Saini and or the trial and or the paperwork. That's what he trusts. Because if anybody does any research and it's online, you can go to it. Don't need my word, go to it. Checkable facts that you can check if you wish. Yes, he did report on his own trial, but at the end of it, Mr. Justice Saini put in place 8 restraining orders. So I will tell you this, the book won't ever be released because he will do his time as he has done. There's a sword of Damocles hanging over his head for the next 2.5 years while his license runs out. And then at the end of the license finishing, that's just his term, his jail. He was jailed for 5.5 years. Some people, it said in the interview, 5 years, 26 weeks. That's 5.5 years. Book 2 will never be released. And I will also tell you this for a fact. Any breach of these restraining orders, one breach, carries up to 5 years in jail. A judge will jail them for breaching these restraining orders. So if he starts talking about the trial and there are 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different episodes within the book where he breaches his restraining orders, that boy, for one breach, 5 years inside. That's the danger that he's flirting with. And he's saying book 2 is going to be published? Nah, never in a month of Sundays, because book 2 is talking about the trial and the people within the trial. And he was blowing smoke up Jim Davidson's backside, as somebody in the comments, I think it was Les, said that's what he does. But I can categorically tell you he did exactly the same to me when he was 17. He blew smoke up my derriere to stay close to me. I can see it now. I mean, I should have known. He then says in the interview, and all the things that I'm saying to you now, if you watch Jim Davidson's Ustream and this particular interview, and I hope Jim does well with A, the interview, and B, Ustream, and this model. I hope he does very well and gets lots of subs. But he said he worked with Ken Dodd since he was 14. What? As a Diddy man? He wasn't working with Ken Dodd. He was taking him gags. He was on the phone to him every day and talking to him. As I've said to you before in previous videos, he used to come up to me on the phone and say, oh, I'm going to see Doddy, I'm going to see Doddy. Right, okay. What are you telling me that for? Oh, have you got any new gags? Well, if I've got any new gags, I'm going to use them on the radio. I'm not going to give them to you to give to somebody else. They're my work. Oh, I need some. He said, I've got some books for him, which I've bought, but I just need a few extra gags. That's not working with Doddy. Doddy was his own man and did his comedy from a stage. And at this point in the interview, that's when Jim Davidson called Dougie a commentator. And Dougie didn't correct him. Because if I'd studied journalism, I'd been to university to study as a journalist, I'd be quite proud of the fact that I'm a journalist, mind you, in today's media. But he didn't correct him at all. He just deflected Jim Davidson's questions. Because Jim Davidson said to him, look, Alex, who are they? Who have you upset? And he just deflected the question. He didn't answer it. Because there is no such thing as they. There is a system in place for people that break the law. It's not they. It's not the shadow dwellers. It's not the government. It's not the judiciary. It's not HMP. Because there are standard license agreements, license terms within his license agreement. That is, you won't badmouth HMP, you won't badmouth the Department of Justice, the Ministry of Justice, you won't badmouth them when you come out of jail, because there's a good behaviour clause. So Jim Davidson then cracked a funny about alleged arsonists. Oh, I wonder who they were talking about. Because, and as I said earlier, no one knows what happened to the Fun Boy 3. But Jim Davidson cracked a funny about fire. And they both laughed. Oh, that was a subtle one. It's about as subtle as a house brick. Can't talk about the case per se, but certain people are alleged to have set fire to his house, to his car, to stuff. That's why it was a subtle, funny quip. And the reason why I mentioned it earlier is because nobody knows what's happened to that particular case. And I will tell you this. Nottinghamshire is not dyed-in-the-wool Labour. Gedling might be. It's a pit village. And the miners are very anti-Tory. Very anti-Tory. Conservatives. Conservative government. So I would suggest that young Dougie is actually dyed-in-the-wool Labour and just says stuff because on social media you have to either be controversial or you have to be right-wing to get an audience. In my view, having worked with him and know where he's from, a pit village, Nottinghamshire miners, steeped in supporting the Labour Party. And so I believe he naturally would be a more Labour supporter, but that's not going to get him. I mean, the left of politics in this country, it's dead, it's over because of the toxicity of the Labour Party, the corruption of the Labour Party. People have seen through them. And toxic Starmer, so they're never going to be elected, in my view, ever again. This is the final term for the Labour Party, Socialist Workers' Party. They rebranded and renamed that. But also, Dougie actually said, he was talking about MAPA, and he was saying 0.1% risk to the public. No, that's not why he was made high risk by MAPA. He was made high risk to stop him from reoffending. He quotes this 0.17% risk to the public. That may be so. But what MAPA are looking at, multi-agency public protection, what they're looking at is him not reoffending. And he actually said he was almost sent back to prison because of the stuff that he released about HMP Fossway. And I would suggest to you that MAPA have got it exactly right, judging by what he was releasing when he left prison. He's high risk of reoffending. He's not a risk to some members of the public, but it's the reoffending they're worried about. They're trying to keep him out of prison. And no matter how hard he injects the poison and how hard he tries, actually MAPA have stopped him from reoffending. That's their job. So in my interview with DC Janet Percival that you can see on here, in the interview, she told you she didn't need a warrant. In the interview with Jim Davidson, he says they can only come in your house if they've got a warrant. And don't allow them in. Incorrect. Incorrect. Now I'm going to give you the knowledge that you actually need. Not some bloke who doesn't do the research and some bloke who just gobs off and then somebody might make a mistake and then find themselves even deeper in the doo-doo. The officer in case, OIC, DC Janet Percival, she told you she didn't need a warrant. Dougie then goes on, after this question from Jim, advising people not to open the door. So seemingly, unless officers have a warrant and you don't invite them in, they can't go into your home. He's not done any research. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's making it up on the fly because most other people won't do the research. But I do. And I'm telling you this now. You can have your door put in under Section 17 of PACE. And what is PACE? It's the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, 1984. You refuse them entry and they have sufficient reason, they'll put your door in under Section 17 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, 1984. If they believe that you are withholding evidence, and wait till I get to what I'm about to say, they'll put your door in. So you've got two elements to this. One, they weren't wearing their epaulets, or they were hiding them. They didn't want me to know who they were. No, there was a terrorist threat in your name, as in Dougie's name, and that's why, if it's terrorism related, they don't have to wear their epaulets or collar number for officers' safety. And what came across to me in this interview, that it was all very well rehearsed. Not on Jim's behalf, because I thought Jim asked some very pertinent questions, some real sharp, good questions that Dougie didn't really answer. So he says, he's been in showbiz, it's now 30 years. Head of neurodiversity at Fossway. So he was employed by the prison service? Was he shite? And so talking about head of neurodiversity, and I believe that being in prison for 2.5 years means he's not really got his timing. There's a crack in his timing. A bit like when he said, "Oh, I had an affair with a prison officer," and Ginger Bastard was the product of that affair with a prison officer. Now, one, he's alleged that he's had a sexual relationship, and it's not irony, it's not humour. He's alleged that he had a sexual relationship with a prison officer while he was inside, female prison officer. He's saying that he was the head of neurodiversity. And then, while he's trying to make funny, there's a reason why I've just told you what I've told you. While he was trying to make a funny, he called them the neurodiverse in prison. He called them whack jobs. Oops. The mask slipped there. And then Jim Davison said to him, "Do you feel an injustice? Or do you feel you were part of the system that needed altering?" So Jim's being gentle with him. So there was 3 questions in one question. Do you feel an injustice? Do you feel you were part of a system that needed changing or altering? Or did they just get it wrong with you? And he deflected it. He said it was disproportionate. What happened to him was disproportionate. And he was unfairly treated. So he gave out examples of people that were done for stalking other people and got suspended sentences. Until later cases, some that were jailed for 9 years and 10 years, he was the most prolific stalker in British criminal history. He was found guilty ×4, not 1, 4. And Jim said to him, "Do you feel bitter?" And he kind of said, "No, I'm quite a positive person. My family and my friends," and he mentioned Katie and others, "my friends know who I am." We all know who you are. I know him better than, well, not as well as his family and or some of his friends, because he doesn't have many of them, I would suggest. But he said, I'm not a bitter person. That's not what Mr. Justice Saney said in the court. Of course he's bitter. Of course he's jealous, because Mr. Justice Saney said so in the court papers as he was sentencing him. So can you see how all this deflection and all this rebuilding the narrative, trying to control the narrative, Anybody that does any research into Mr. Justice Saini's summing up at the end of the trial would blow what he said in this Ustream interview out of the water. And he said he had the 2 top clinical psychologists interviewing him for 4 hours at a time. They came up from Birmingham. And I've said this in other videos. I believe that anybody that was dealing with him on a psychological level it's going to give them their doctorate. They could become professors, because this case alone would want to be handled by so many different people in so many different areas of the justice system, because it's so complex that they could study him, they get a chance to study him, and then they can get their doctorate. He said, well, they couldn't find a single issue. What? I'm not a clinical psychologist and I can see the issues writ large on my bloody TV screen. And can I just say something else to you? I know, to kind of round this off, because I'll go to your comments in a second, but I know where he gets his stuff from. Because remember, I've been a commercial radio presenter for 40 years. 1984 when I started. If you want to add me hospital radio on, 1979. That's 46 years. Longer than he's been alive. And I've studied other presenters, other styles, other techniques. All of them. And where he gets the micro penis from? Howard Stern. Shock jock Howard Stern in New York. He says, oh, you know, I'm not very well hung. But watching him, I don't know whether it's a comedic thing, in my view, or whether he sounds obsessed by micro peni. So, as I said earlier, it may be a ham-fisted attempt at humour, you know, sleeping with prison guards, this, that, and the other. Maybe it's a ham-fisted attempt at humour. And not being very well hung. Howard Stern. Even Howard Stern's wife had to come out and say, oh, just ignore him. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay for size. It's fine. His wife had to validate it because everybody believed that Howard Stern was telling them I'm not very well hung like a thimble. So he's kind of, whether it is comedy, I don't know. But it's a ham-fisted attempt at it, if it is. But the amount of times he mentions his micro penis, he sounds obsessed. But as I say, he loved Howard Stern. He would go across to New York, record Stern or get recordings of Stern, and then sell them on to other people in the UK, because you couldn't get copies of Howard Stern's radio shows. This is pre-internet. This is back in the late 90s. He used to sell them on. So he would have gotten it from Howard Stern. So if you want to go to Ustream and sign up for it, please do. I wish Jim well with his endeavours. I thought, as an interviewer from a professional, I thought he was very good. I thought he asked some very good questions. But Dougie avoided answering them. Just reflected it back with examples of other people, not himself. And he blew smoke up Jim Davidson's arse. So that's my take. I hope it's given you some kind of insight. I hope that Fred Barker says, I would like to know who the woman was that came into his kitchen during one of his lives. Could have been his sister, could have been anybody. I mean, he was telling everybody he was going to have his mum and dad on one of his videos. And then it was some comedian from Blackpool. Wasn't his mum and dad? I see you says, it doesn't interest me at all, nothing new. But the insight I've just given you is brand new. Nobody else can give you this. And I'm not suggesting that other people try and do it. Other people might watch this and try and take what I'm talking about. There's Griffith's Fred. It wasn't the same one as in his holiday flat in Spain. Yes, Rusty's roamings, it was our trace. Paulie Galtieri. I've actually stayed in there's a hotel on in the middle of York, and they have it's a Frankie Howard suite or room, and literally they've got Frankie Howard pictures on, like, you're sitting there, dropping the kids off, and you turn to your right, there's Frankie Howard watching you, dropping the kids off. Freaked the hell out of me. So James. Andrew James, no doubt he stole jokes from a very young Bubba the Love Sponge. Probably, Andrew. I mean, he wasn't doing the political stuff because I was doing the political stuff, and he wasn't geopolitically well versed, so he didn't do that. He was just doing Camp Knob gags. But then again, that shtick he nicked from somebody else, who I'm not going to name here, for very obvious reasons, and he's a dear friend of mine. But this other person would say, I just do Camp Knob gags. And then that morphed itself into Dougie saying, I just do knob gags. Stuart says, from loads of people, lots of Scotty stuff. Yeah, he nicked a load of Bob Monkhouse. He nicked a load of Scotty McClue. So the 1-2 book on my show is Scotty. To give Scotty his credit, because, Scotty worked at his craft and honed his craft and came up with a way of speaking that was funny for the listener. So 1-2, buckle my shoe, fart head, hard of thinking, they're all Scotties. Yeah, Stuart says, I remember him saying he's just a gobshite who does knob gags. That's another presenter's words. Napoleon blown apart. Yeah, he's been sacked. Stern's been sacked. Go on, Terry. Beata, did Jim ask about the money? No, he didn't, Beata. There's other people asking that same question. Oh, Septic Peggers, Brian Conley. It's a puppet. Phil the Van. Look, he's trying to turn the narrative around. So he's like, oh, people are stalking me. Nobody's stalking him. I'm commenting on something that's in the social arena. And where I have the advantage is he was my friend until he wasn't. And I've even got contact from him, although I will keep that to one side. I've even got contact from him subsequently. I'll keep that bit of corroborative evidence for when I need it. So, Stuart says, anytime he was asked about the money on the phone, and he got very, very aggressive and cut them off. Well, I'm sure he will. But he knows. He knows. He knows the game's up. He knows stuff. And I'm not going to take it any further than that for fear of jeopardizing anything that may come out of what I've just told you. Now, I know that sounds like riddles, but for legal reasons, I'm not going to go any further down that road. Movies and TV from the chair. How was it even able to broadcast the interview when apparently he wasn't allowed to do anything on any other app, even though it's Jim's site? It's him on an app behind a paywall, I would imagine, behind a paywall. So unless you subscribe, and if you want to see it, subscribe. There's Griffith says, at least the trolling on here seems to have stopped. Agreed. People do want to know. And I will give you this agreement. I won't do any more Dougie stuff until something new happens. Because I've told everyone lots of different parts of it. And the fact that this Ustream interview has validated what I told you 2.5 years ago. I have no reason to lie. What's the point? Really, Andrew James? He stole a lot of jokes from Heidi High. what I meant was, when Dougie put on his night that he wasn't allowed to do anything or broadcast anything or change anything on his site, how was Jim allegedly allowed to broadcast the interview? I'm speculating, but it's behind a paywall. So I think Dougie gets very close to the wire with a couple of things. Very close. I think Jim's team have been clever enough to just make sure that they didn't step over the line. So he names names, and they're kind of beeped out. So Jim doesn't get any legal retribution. So I genuinely don't know. So they can't ban him from the internet. They can just ban him from social media. And this is a website. It's not social media. So I think there's probably a subtlety in there somewhere where he can get away with it. Or not, as the case may be. Because if Mappa decree that he's taking the piss, who knows what's going to happen. But I will refer you to my advice for him, Dougie, and his team from the very get-go. Just do your time, head down, arse up. So long as nobody parks their bike, you'll be fine. When you come out, not out, because you came out at the trial. And remember, there's no such thing as Mrs. Belfield. None. None. Ever. Well, he's certainly not married a woman. So he's, as I say, the thing that's going to do for him is the two separate defamation trials where he's an admitted liar. Self-admitted liar. I lied. I lied. Who said that? Andrew James. Celebrity radio is like Dennis Pennis. Dennis Pennis was really good. So I don't know how they're getting by that. They do talk about HMP Fossway and what happened in there. And the other thing is, the reason why he's so plausible is there was a clip of an interview. You know, the guy behind the plumbers firm, Pimlico Plumbers, the boy with a really bad Rod Stewart hairdo. Dougie was getting into his ribs about stuff and was just saying, they're facts, they're facts, they're facts. And the guy from Pimlico Plumbers, although this was entered into this interview near the end of the interview to kind of show that Dougie was a decent interviewer, the guy from Pimlico Plumbers said, what's your source? And Alex couldn't name his source. He just said, the facts, they're facts. Well, good journalists, of which Dougie isn't, would have quoted the sources. That's why I say to you, whenever I'm quoting stuff, I will quote sources. So I've given you, when I talk about PACE, the Police and Crime Evidence Act of 1984. It's there. You now know where I've got my details from. Section 17 of PACE, you know where I've got my details from. So if you wanted to go and do further research, you can go and do further research. And again, as I've said repeatedly, I don't mind being given an education, because that's why I'm here. We work at Charlie Mullins. Yes, Lauren Taylor. Thank you. And Stuart. Yeah, Stuart, you said, well, they're just facts. Well, no. Charlie Mullins wanted the source. And anybody that's done... I mean, Jim said that he'd looked at some of Alex's stuff this morning before he did the interview, and I think the interview was done a couple of weeks ago. Yes, just for Amalia's sake. So within the Ustream video, Jim's team have edited in some of my Dougie's highlights, but they've used Ustream highlights because Dougie was over there doing interviews for them of Camp 70s comedians. Ray Norton. Mullins wouldn't employ non-jabbed. I know. Let's see if there's going to be any sort of legal retribution in this country around people that had to have the jab and are now jibber jabber damaged. So Amalia, they used what they already had, so they weren't breaking any copyright with YouTube or any other socials. They already had that interview and wanted to use part of that interview to give an example of what Dougie did before and did on Ustream. So, Paulie Galtieri, where did he nick? But that wasn't why you called from. It'll have been somebody from Talk Radio, maybe. I'm trying to think. The same guy, I'm sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. Not while I'm doing this live. Wow, I see you said no compensation for jab injustice or injury. It's not on the government's agenda. Well, the next government, fingers crossed it will be. So, Rich, you legend. Yeah, it was Tommy Boyd. It's Tommy Boyd. And I tell you this, Dougie might have wanted to go onto the radio and play and toy with other radio presenters. Tommy Boyd wouldn't have given him the lickings of a dog. Tommy was a superb practitioner and a great guy. Stuart says, I was never offended by "How do, Chunky." I always laughed when he said that, never realised he was trolling. Oh, yeah, he was laughing at you. Well, I don't think he was laughing at you personally, Stuart, per se. But I said to you when I first started doing these, "How do, Chunky?" He's laughing at you. But now you can understand when... so Chunky Myers, everybody in the radio industry knew John as Chunky Myers. And so if you ever see this Ustream interview, he doesn't answer the question, where did you get that nickname from? He didn't answer it because it's not his nickname. It's somebody else's. But he did say, I take bits and pieces from here and there. Like a magpie, a radio magpie. I see you laughing all the way to the bank. Andrew James calling his fans punters. Look, to give him credit, he's very plausible and a great communicator. I just feel he's gone the wrong side of the tracks, and I think money has done that to him. But calling your listeners or viewers punters are what dancing girls shag, in my view. Now, the wrong uns, I can qualify that very easily. I've been using that since 1998. Now, other people are like, oh, they're just words. Correct, they are. But I have verifiable, corroborative evidence on this channel. If you go looking for Roger trying to say scum sucking pond life, that comes from the Top Man tapes. And wrong uns, I haven't got it. In fact, tomorrow night I'll get the insert from the CD that was released in 2002. So 23 years ago, I was calling. I'm not going to tell you where I got it from because it's actually filthy. But some people know, some people don't. But wrong uns is just like an epithet, just, but I've been using the term wrong uns on the radio since 1998. Jeremy Beadle had a few catchphrases in his radio days. LBC, Fred Barker. LBC. Somebody else said something else there. Oh, that's it, Cell Rebel. Tommy is a master. How he dealt with his zoo had to be witnessed. It was amazing radio. But I was listening with different ears. I was listening to the technique. I was listening not to the content. I was listening to the way he did things. As I say, I was very privileged in radio. So I used to just study and study and study. And in fact, I'll tell you this very quick story. Where are we? I'll tell you this very quick story. Two things. One, I was the first radio presenter in this country, not sure about the world, but definitely in Great Britain, to have two callers on air arguing against each other. We did it at Century 106, and we only did that. Other people have done it since it's 27 years. But we used to get somebody on, hello, Adrian, I'm a first-time caller, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And then they would come on, and then somebody would, I want a word, I want a word. So we got them on, we had them rowing proper. So if the row was kind of dissipating, I would jump in and go, well, you said this, and you said that. Rah, 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 rah. It was great radio. It was engaging and entertaining because I said this to you many times. The reason why I was so successful, my phone-ins were never about me, and per se were never about the callers. My commercial radio phone-ins were about the listener. And Dougie said that today. He said, oh no, it's about the audience, it's about the audience. I taught him that when he was 17. And the other thing, I'll give you this. So you've seen some of my interview technique with Janet Percival, the OIC, officer in case, or DC Janet Percival, ex-DC of Nottinghamshire Police. What you want as a viewer or a listener is to hear what she's got to say. So the technique is one breath questions. Short. So you're directing the interviewee into a place where you want them to go. Not nastily, but it is not about the interviewer. To a certain extent, it's not. I'm not Laird Buckfit. I'm not having anybody dunk their digestives in my tea because I don't know what he might be using for milk. You want to hear what the interviewee has to say. And the good interviewers, whether it's on social media or mainstream media, are those that allow the interviewee to say what they need to say. And if you don't think you've got all of that out of them with one question, just ask it in a different way. So the technique that I came up with at Century 106, I watched, was it Manhunt, the original Hannibal Lecter film? I can't remember who directed it, but I remember the director doing a TV interview, and there is a piece of film where Hannibal Lecter's in his cell, but it's bars, and the FBI agent is talking to Hannibal Lecter through the bars. And I watched it. Was it? Michael Mann. Yeah, I think you're right, Andrew Jones. I think it was Michael Mann. And he said what he was trying to do was he was trying to get the FBI agent to ask a question. And every time they asked a question, they cut to Hannibal Lecter, a Scottish actor whose name I can't remember, through the bars. And with each question, they got closer and closer and closer until between the FBI agent and Hannibal Lecter, there were no bars. It was just the FBI agent and Hannibal Lecter. And I watched this and I thought, hey, that's interview. So basically all you're doing is you're trying to cut away all the levels so that you actually get to the real person underneath it all. And I used that technique on the radio loads and loads and loads of times. But it was just something that I was inspired by, and I thought I could adapt that and use that in my radio presentation technique. Brian Cox, thank you, Tom Harnings. Brian Cox, he was amazing as a Hannibal Lecter. Fly, Agent Starling, Rich. Terry Wookford, Brian Cox played Lecter in Manhunter. I know, and just this one little this one little technique that I sort of took away and played about with and used within. I mean, maybe other people who use it now. King Treble 7, Brian Cox, the jab pusher. Yeah, we've all got our burdens. So I think what I'll do is all of the stuff that I had for this evening's live, as I say, I will only ever talk about Dougie if there's something new to say. And I believe that my insight is unique into both him and interviewing and the words that he said. So I know the characters in radio like John Myers and Howard Stern and Tommy Boyd for that matter. I know all of these characters. So that's why I've done this tonight. Didn't intend to, but that's why I did this tonight. I'll have a look at your comments during the day tomorrow. The live will return at 7:30 Monday night. So we will do all the stuff that I haven't been able to do this evening. I'm sure there'll be other stuff tomorrow, including the Tory Party Conference and Kemi Not Good Enough and Starmer and Manchester and insight into in other things and some of the fun stuff that I've got. And we'll do that tomorrow night, starting at 7:30. Parish notes at 7:15. Hope tonight has given you some value and some insight. If you want to see the Ustream interview, then sign up for Jim Davidson's site. It's a website rather than social media platform, and it's behind a paywall, so you're not going to be able to see it until you pay to get to see it. Enjoy your evening. Don't forget the likes. Cool, blimey, we've had quite a few people watching this evening. Smash the likes, please, before you go. Getting the live over 200 means that it gives me value. It tells the algorithm that there's something going on, so people should watch more of it, and it would help the channel. Thank you to all those people supporting me this evening with your donations. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for your likes, your subscriptions, but most of all, your indulgence. My name is genuinely Adrian Allen, and whatever you do, wherever you go, be well, be healthy. Don't forget emergency Battenberg, just in case. And thank you, Stuart. Great live, Adrian. Good to have you back. Thank you, Ian McGee. See you Monday night. Parish Notes 7:15. Meet of the live at 7:30. And remember, the Theatre of the Mind is not a show. It's a mission towards the truth. And we will continue Monday, tomorrow, 7:30. See you then.